capable of not making it, if that makes sense. And I actually think it might be Pittsburgh because of their offensive line, because of their lack of a running game, and kind of lost in the shuffle of a lot of things in Pittsburgh right now is they've had a pretty significant defensive makeover. Now, James Harrison is still there, and Lamar Woodley and Timmons, they're still there, and Troy Polamalu, obviously. But a lot of other spots are young guys who either have had some reps or are being frontline players for the first time in their careers. And, so the coaching staff is still there with Coach LeBeau and everything, and it's still the Steelers. But there's some new faces there. So, I think Pittsburgh definitely has some questions to answer, and maybe I need to rethink where my confidence is in them, especially if this Roethlisberger shoulder thing is more than just his normal gimmick to get some attention and get some benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, definitely. My take with the Steelers is, they have Dick LeBeau. They've done it before. So I've penciled them in there into the playoffs. At the same time, I see a team like Cincinnati, who no one is talking about right now, that could be that dark horse that maybe slides into the playoffs and maybe upsets the Pittsburgh Steelers. But also, if you look at that division right now, you have Baltimore. They're having some contract issues with Ed Reed. When do you think they're going to come to an agreement, or are they going to come to agreement before the start of the season for Ed Reed?
No, I don't think they are. I think Baltimore, the better teams in this league are kind of heartless, and they know when it's time to move on from somebody. And I'm not saying that Ed Reed is going to be done in Baltimore, but I think the Ravens know how to handle this situation. They're prepared to do it with Ed, and they'll do it eventually with Ray Lewis. I don't think that they're in any rush to make any kind of commitment here to Ed just to see what he's like physically over another season. I don't think this gets done before the year. If I'm Baltimore, I wouldn't do it. They kind of won this staring battle over the offseason where he went back and forth about whether he's going to play or not, and he had a lot of leverage this offseason because of Terrell Suggs' injury, because of Ray Rice's contract status, because of Joe Flacco. He had the ability, and he tried to kind of stomp his feet and get some more cash with free agency coming next winter, and they just kind of said, he just sat there in Baltimore and did nothing and let Ed talk himself in and out of playing again, and now he's back and no new deal. So I don't think they turn around after all of that and give him something new right now. I think they let him. They wait and see what he is physically, and they'll address it next offseason. And if they have to make a decision that they've had it, Ed Reed's had his time, they're not going to necessarily hesitate to make that choice. For all the loyalty they have, like Pittsburgh, Baltimore is going to get rid of a guy maybe a year early as opposed to a year late. So I don't think this gets fixed. I think Flacco gets fixed in the relative near future, but I think Ed Reed plays 2012 kind of as lame duck, so to speak, without a deal after this season.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I don't think Baltimore wants to get bullied around by Ed Reed. I know he has been a long-serving player for them, but I think they're just going to wait this one out. They're not going to let this drag on through training camp as well. They just want to move on, get camp started. I completely agree there, but do you think Baltimore is the team to come out of the AFC North this year?
You know what? I do, and the Suggs injury is immense, and it is going to kind of define their season. But even with Suggs' injury and maybe the defense, which is obviously with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis getting a little bit older, but there's also a lot of young guys that have played big minutes already for them that are pretty impressive, and that includes Haloti Ngata, who is one of the single greatest forces in the NFL these days. But even above that, defensively, I really like their offense. I mean, Ray Rice is unbelievable. I'm a Joe Flacco believer. I think the two tight ends, Pitta and Dixon, can do a few things, and Anquan Bolden is still more than serviceable, and I think Torrey Smith takes a new step. So I think the Ravens, not that they're going to all of a sudden become some offensive juggernaut, but they may be, slightly more offensive than defensive this year, and that's why I like them, because I think the defense will be okay, and the offense goes another level, which should make them that much better than last year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like the Ravens this year. I think they're going to give the Pats a run for their money in the AFC. Now, one final question I was reading today about the latest on Maurice Jones Drew. Now, he is again holding out. He wants a new contract. He believes he is underpaid. What do you think a team like Jacksonville has to do with Maurice Jones Drew?
They have to do what they're doing right now. I mean, MJD was phenomenal last year, led the league in rushing, even though he was on a team that had really posed no threat of a passing game. So everyone knew they were going to run, and he still did what he did. So, I mean, off that, he deserves to be rewarded, but they were overpaying him at the beginning of this contract. Now they're underpaying him, so they kind of are breaking even here, and they have to, with a new owner and a new head coach, they have to make their own little stand here. So They could do some small things. There is compromise available. They could give a little more, lock in a few more guaranteed dollars over these next couple of years without going full-on extension. But at this point, I don't think that they budge really. They're not all of a sudden just going to give in out of nowhere. So I think MJD, and I'm all for guys, you got to get paid when you can get paid. But that's the off season. Now it's time to play, and I think Maurice Jones Drew has lost this. So I think he really needs to show up and get in, and no one's going to hold it against him. You tried. It didn't work. Now come back and let's get rolling here, because they're not going to give in the way he wants them to. They're certainly getting compromised, but the Jags are not going to break here, and they shouldn't. I understand where they're coming from. So if I'm MJD, I'm just going to swallow my pride here and show back up and be a good soldier and maybe lead the league again in rushing and then have this conversation again next winter.
Yeah, because he's already losing money right now just by holding out. And you got to think that, I don't know, even under a week, he'd probably say, you know what, I should just, come back, play, earn my money, then renegotiate next year. But in terms of Jacksonville, a team that's always been rumored to be on the move because they can't get fans for the games, do you think they have to really kind of take this situation with caution? Because if they lose Maurice Jones Drew, that's a franchise in serious trouble.
Yeah, but they're not going to lose Maurice Jones Drew off of this immediately. He's in theory. In reality, he's got to come play. I can't imagine that he's going to just sit out and hang out and not show up. And don't forget too, part of this is just simply guys don't like going to training camp, so he may just be taking a kind of an unexcused absence right now, an extra vacation. So he's going to come back. He's going to play his 2 years, and the franchise tag is in play and that kind of stuff. So I don't think they're necessarily in danger of losing Maurice Jones Drew, but the last thing they want to do though is just PO their fans. And MJD in particular that's come out in all of this is he's not necessarily universally beloved in Jacksonville because fans don't think he's huge in the community and whatnot. So he's kind of the one that is in danger of losing here because I don't know that he had that many allies when this all began, and he certainly loses more and more of those by the day. Yeah,
definitely. So Andrew, thank you for joining me today. We hope to have you on again to talk more NFL as the training camp and stuff heats up. We're also going to have you on for some fantasy advice as well. If you'd like to come on, we'd be glad to have you again.
Of course. You know how to track me down. It'd be my pleasure.
And Andrew, have a great day.
You too, Colin.
So that does it for episode 8 of The Good, the Bad, the Teskey. We'd like to thank Andrew Bogusch again from Sirius Satellite Radio for joining us. And we'd also like to thank all of you listening. You guys could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be right here listening to the podcast. For more information on upcoming interviews and upcoming topics, follow us at our Facebook page at The Good, the Bad, the Teskey, or read my blog, thegoodthebadtheteskey.wordpress.com. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.